In this video, I'm going to be explaining the relationship between hypothyroidism and BPPV, or benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. All right, so I've done some other videos on this. I just want to do another quick video to explain the connection between the two. Now, I will tell you that if you do a little research, you'll find some conflicting information, but I can tell you from the preponderance of stuff that I've read, and of course my last 20 years of experience treating vestibular patients and thyroid patients, there's definitely a connection between the two. And a study came out from Italy in the last year that kind of confirmed that. Now, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo is a condition in which you get a little dislodging of these little otoconal crystals in your ear, and basically they fall into one of your semicircular canals where they don't belong, and they disturb how your brain tells if you're moving or not. So the classic symptoms of BPPV are you roll over in bed and you get spinning vertigo, or you reach up high and you get spinning vertigo. Now usually it only lasts about maybe 30 seconds to a minute. It can be very terrible though. It can be so bad it makes you vomit. But the problem is that it can recur. Now imagine that you've got BPPV, you have an episode of this vertigo, you go see your ENT or whoever, and they do this thing called a Dix-Hall-Pike maneuver, which is a test, and they say, yep, you have BPPV. And then they do a repositioning maneuver, sometimes called an Epley's maneuver, or there's different names for it. And what that repositioning maneuver is supposed to do is kind of put that crystal back in the area where it belongs so that your body can resorb it over the next, weeks. But it can recur. And recurring BPPV, of course, is terrible, and there's been some research done on that. And we know, for example, that vitamin D deficiency is associated with that. Hormonal issues with women seem to be associated with that. But one of the things that seems to be a really strong connection is your thyroid function. And hypothyroidism in particular, but particularly Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. Now, hypothyroidism, of course, is when you don't make enough thyroid hormones and you have to take hormones to make up for what you can't make. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune thyroid condition and is the #1 cause of hypothyroidism by far. And so a lot of people have Hashimoto's, and the connection is there. Now, exactly why the connection is there, the researchers aren't right clear on that. I'll tell you what I think. I think it's because Hashimoto's is an inflammatory condition. It's an autoimmune condition. All autoimmune conditions are inflammatory, and that inflammatory nature creates an environment where these little crystals that are in your inner ear that are kind of sitting there in kind of this gel, it makes it easier for them to break off and dissolve. I think it's that simple. I can also tell you that some research has shown that dealing with your immune system and dealing with, for example, vitamin D deficiency can be very protective against the recurrence of BPPV. Okay, so why did I make this video? I'm making this video because if you're watching it, you probably had BPPV and you maybe had it more than a couple of times, and maybe you're doing Brandt Daroff exercises at home. You're doing, you're going to the doctor trying to get, the correct diagnosis, maybe going to vestibular rehab. But you need to make sure that someone is looking at the metabolic side of things, right? The neurochemical side of things, because if you haven't been checked for Hashimoto's, and you have recurring BPPV, you need to make sure you get checked. But get checked correctly, that means doing both thyroid antibodies, and then make sure you're working with someone that knows what to do if you have that, right? Because remember, there's different kind of forms of Hashimoto's. There's the euthyroid, which is where you just have the thyroid antibodies. There's subclinical, where you have the antibodies and your TSH is high, but nothing else is wrong. And then you have overt, easily recognized hypothyroidism, where your TSH is high, your T4, T3 is low, and you got the antibodies. So I'm talking about thyroid stuff in a vestibular BPPV video because they are connected. Like I said, over the last 20 years, I've seen tons of people with both of those conditions. And typically, what happens when someone's got recurring BPPV is they've got some sort of inflammatory issue that hasn't been resolved. And the most common one is Hashimoto's. So if that's you and you're having recurring BPPV, make sure you're working with someone that understands, already knows the connection, and knows what to do about it. Okay, I'll see you next time.